Welcome 8th graders to lesson 4-6A, using formulas. This is going to be one of the ways in which they are going to ask you to apply the rational numbers, and in particular the positive decimals as well as positive fractions and mixed numbers. These formulas should all be very familiar to you, that in a rectangle, the area equals length times width. In a square, we often use length times width, but your book is going to ask you right now to use side squared. And there will be some books that you'll have in the future that will tell you the same thing. The idea is it's the same thing really as length times width. It's just that the length of the side is the same, so therefore we just go side squared. Maybe the more tricky one to understand is trapezoid, although hopefully you remember this from years in the past. We're going to take 1/2 times the sum of the bases times the height. Now remember that the height is what we call a perpendicular height. This is not the height because it's not perpendicular, okay? We are going to be dealing with a perpendicular height. Let's look at example A rather. Okay, we're going to start out by always writing down our formula, and first we have to recognize what shape we have. This is a square, so we are going to use area equals side squared. So area equals 2.2, and this is where squared, so this is where you're going to probably use your calculator. Remember, it depends upon if you have a 30xa, in which case you're going to use y to the x key. Or if you have a Roman numeral 2, it'll say Roman numeral 2xs on the top. There you have to look for the power key, which I believe is on the left of your keypad. And then you're going to have to put in the power. So we are going to put in 2.2. So if you have a 30xa, put in 2.2, hit your y to the x key, then hit 2. If you have a Roman numeral 2xs, you're going to put in 2.2, hit your power key. It kind of looks like a little caret from editing, or a mountaintop key, and then press your 2. You'll probably have to press equals, and you should come out with 4.84. Then remember, we always need a label, and since we're working with area, that means it's squared. People, you've had area for a few years now, and you've kind of got to get it learned that whenever you have area, you have a squared unit. You're taking a centimeter times a centimeter, which is a centimeter squared. It's kind of like going back to chapter 2, where if we took a times a, that meant a squared. If you took a times a times a, it meant a cubed. Well, it's the same idea here. Centimeter times a centimeter is centimeter squared. Let's look at sample B. This time you have to recognize we have a trapezoid. Area equals 1/2 the sum of the bases, b sub 1 plus b sub 2 times your height. All right. B sub 1 is 6 and b sub 2 is 12. Yes, it could be the other way around because obviously addition is commutative. Generally speaking, we're in the habit of calling the top one b sub 1 and the bottom one b sub 2, or if it's sitting on its side, we'll call the left side b sub 1 and the right side b sub 2. And then we're going to take it times h, which is 4. Now, here's where we could actually do the rest of this mentally, but I'll probably go through this for those of you who might struggle a little bit. Now, if it's compared to what we just had in our lessons, we know that we could take 1/2 of 4. You cannot take 1/2 of the 6 or the 1/2 of 12. Notice how it's in parentheses. That means you really can't touch it until after you've done the addition. What you really have here is 1/2 times 18 times 4. Now here's where you get to make a choice. You're either going to have to take 1/2 of 18, which means 9, and then 9 times 4 is 36, or you could take 1/2 of the 4. However, You absolutely cannot take 1/2 of both of them. You can only take 1/2 of one of them. So then my area is going to be 36 meters squared. Now this step right here is actually optional. Some of you are going to be able to handle it where you figure, okay, 1/2 of 4 is 2. 6 plus 12 is 18. 18 times 2 is 36. If you struggle with that, then go ahead and put in the optional step. It's better that you write it out and get it correct than to skip it and end up getting it wrong. C. Ah, yes, the old rectangles. Probably back to 4th grade, right? Okay, area equals length times width. Area is going to be 9.2 times 4. Okay, 4 times 2 is 8. Bring the decimal point. Then we have to take 4 times 9, that's 36. And again, remember, your label has to be squared. Notice back on B, meters squared. We're talking area, square units. This one has fractions. I would hit pause. I'd ask you to hit pause and do the problem, and then I'll go over it. Yes, you're going to write down the formula. 3 1/4 times 1 1/2. Okay, we are back to multiplying rational numbers. 13 over 4 times 3 over 2. No, it isn't very nice because you really can't reduce anything. So you're going to get 39 over 8. And then you're going to have to take 8 into 39 is going to go 4 times, and you're going to have 7 left over. So 4 7/8 inches squared. The formula that you've probably used in a science class is distance equals rate times time, or speed times time. Okay? So we're going to solve for r if we know what d equals. The first thing we do is always write down our formula. They tell us that d is 10, and they tell us that t is 0.4. Well, I'm going to put it as 0.4r. Use my commutative property because it looks a little better for me at that point. Look, folks, your variable is r. You're not going to divide by 10. Here's my variable. The coefficient is 0.4. So I'm going to divide both sides by 0.4. You have had equations since like 5th, 6th grade, 6th grade for sure. You got to start recognizing that you don't just, oh, I divide that number by this number. You look for the variable, you divide by the coefficient. And r in this case is going to be 25 once you do the math. Now, r is speed. We have kilometers and we have hours. So that means I have 25 kilometers per hour, because I am taking kilometers over here and dividing by hours. So that's my label. Let's look at F. Here I'm back in English units that I'm used to working with. You're used to working with as well. So d equals r times t. D is 120. This time r is 45 miles per hour, and I'm working in t, time, trying to find t. Now again, where's my variable? Yep, it's t. What's the coefficient of t? 45. So that's what you're going to divide by. You don't just divide by the 120 because that's the number on the left, okay? Think. Check that variable. Find that coefficient. You know you're supposed to divide by the coefficient or multiply by its reciprocal. Okay? 45 divided by 45 leaves me with t. I'm going to get 120 over 45. I can reduce that by 15, certainly by 5 first, if you need to. Otherwise, by 15 if you can catch the greatest common factor. This will be 3, and the top will be 8. So now I'm at 2 2/3 hour. Now, Some of you are going to sneak that calculator because I know you, and you're going to end up with 2.6666666666666666667. And you know what? You're going to say, well, what do I write down? So you're going to write down 2.6 repeating. And you know what? I'm going to mark the answer wrong because that has no meaning. What is 0.6 repeating of an hour? You don't know, do you? Can you tell me 2/3 of an hour? Yes, 2/3 of an hour is 45. If you see a 0.6 repeating because you are sneaking that calculator in, you better put it in 2/3 of, you better put that fraction as 2/3. If you're sneaking a calculator and you're going to get 0.3 repeating, you better tell me 1/3 and not tell me 2.3 repeating because I'll mark it wrong. And don't just think you're going to copy down the answer off the answer key, because what happens if you're going to do this on a test? You're going to get it wrong on the test. So you better learn those fractions. Now they're on your flashcards. Learn them or don't use your calculator. And that completes today's lesson. Scouting out.